Good afternoon. Welcome to the tea table. I'm so happy you joined me. It's so beautiful today, and I wanted to come outside because it's awfully nice to have tea on the deck. Today I have some lovely tulips in a Dutch vase. Speaking of spring, and I thought it would be fun to have a cup of tea together. If you want to go get your tea, you could put a pause and go get it and come back. I think tea in the afternoon is a wonderful thing. I apologize for the noise. I'm outside, but I'm hoping you will be able to hear me. I love this little set I have. My husband got me this on one of our anniversary trips to Victoria, BC. We were married July 7th, and so our anniversary comes in summer, and a lovely time to go on the boat to Victoria, where we actually had our honeymoon. Almost everyone from here in this northwest area are familiar with the lovely English British city of Victoria, BC, British Columbia, Canada. And there's a wonderful hotel there called the Empress, built over 100 years ago, and named, of course, the Empress was Queen Victoria. And it is a stately building that when you come in the harbor on the boat, she greets you. This gorgeous hotel, ivy covered, and really you're going back to Victorian England when you enter Victoria. And they have had, through the 100 years or more of their tenure, many various china sets. And it's very famous at Victoria, BC. People go and have high tea. In fact, I was reading that they have served more high tea than the hotels in London. It's so popular. So this little set is called Tea for One. Okay, and this is the original pattern that the Victoria Empress Hotel used for their tea room. And they've brought it out at their 100th anniversary, reproduced it at a British china shop in England. And this is what Tea for One is. Now, when you make proper British tea, you first warm the pot, and then you warm the cup also. So my cup has been warmed. This has hot water. I need to dump it, and I hope you don't mind me doing that here. Okay, now in this cup you see a crown, and I love this. It's the royal crown, and what is on top of it is a cross, and then beneath it is a round orb which represents the world. And the meaning of that is Jesus Christ is the King, and he rules around the world. And the sovereign of the nation, whoever the king or queen are of England, they rule under him. That is such a beautiful picture. So this cup is very special, and I use this almost every day. And so I'm going to pour out. In England, the woman pours out for whoever the guests are. The lady of the house will pour out, and the common British way of having tea is with a little milk. It's a lovely little pitcher here, and I'll have a little milk. And then today I put on my tray for Easter, I hope you can see it, it's a hot cross bun. Do you see that? And a hot cross bun really originates, I believe, in England. And it is quite fascinating because the cross, of course, represents Jesus and Easter. So it's a very lovely, meaningful Easter event. And I really like hot cross buns. They remind me of my Norwegian cardamom bread and Yule log at Christmas. I think I'll take my sunglasses off so I can see you just a little better. Well, I'm wearing a big hat today. This hat was a gift from my son for my birthday last week. It came in the mail. No kidding. It's the biggest hat I think I've ever had, and I thought it would be so fun to wear it today for our tea party. And you know, hats have useful purpose. They are decorative, but they shade you from the sun. And so often you will see at many British events that are outdoors, all the ladies wearing hats. Well, it's often not just to have a beautiful hat for fashion, but it is also very practical. And it's interesting because the tea and the china remind me of East meets West. We know that tea originally came from the East Indies and China, and where they had wonderful hot climates where they could grow it. And when the British Navy went out and started doing exploration, they found the tea, brought it back, and everyone loved it. And then in China, they found the beautiful china, which is China. You know, China comes from China originally, and the British, being very industrious, created hundreds of different china factories and created enormous amounts of variety and established a real tradition that is really lovely. And I think it's important that we keep it, because I one day was sitting and analyzing Western civilization and where we've come from. Western Civ, if you take a course in college, it will generally begin, well, actually my Western Civ class began at the beginning. It began in Babylon, Assyria, and then went on to, you know, of course, the Hebrews, the Greeks, and the Romans. So really, and then my Western Civ book was divided at the birth of Christ, and then it began again for really what Western Civ generally is from the birth of Christ to today, which is 2,000 years. And, you know, all through history, I know that people were giving a cup of cold water. I'm sure the Middle East they had hot drinks. They would have their own form of tea or their own form of coffee. And it's come to the point now where it has become a tradition. And an afternoon tea is really, really nice. It is relaxing. It is conversational. It can be reflective. It can give you a little more energy to complete your tasks for the day. And I think it can be extremely comforting. And it is a place where people can come and chat and come and talk and be renewed with their fellow men and women. That being said, I want to go quickly into my Easter subject for today. And what I want to talk about actually is England. I started thinking I have many, many wonderful Easter memories of my childhood. My first memory, I think, is waking up. We lived near a little church that rang bells, and I remember bells ringing. I remember bluebirds singing, and the little bluebell flowers in my yard. I remember the robin was my first bird, and I have that all in my mind of Easter, and a special dress and special shoes, and going to church all together in the car, coming home to a lovely dinner, maybe having friends in, and then maybe having an Easter egg hunt and a little basket. My mother always had a basket for all of us with eggs and chocolates, and we would maybe color eggs. And that was fun. And then I also remember that Easter was a time, and I want to show you, was a time for a new purse. I have a special little purse here. It's pink. But you know, when I was young, Easter was the beginning of being able to wear white shoes, white gloves, white hat, white. And then once Labor Day came, which is the end of August, you weren't supposed to wear white shoes or white hats. It was quite strict. So I brought a little pair of gloves here. These are really gloves from my childhood era. I think they're gloves. They're gloves from a long, long time ago. They're little soft pink gloves, and they have a little pearl on them. And anyway, Easter, it seemed like we always had gloves. And then my mother always had a corsage. Women all wore corsages. And generally it would be an orchid, which again is in the lily family. But then I started thinking, what is my most significant memory of Easter? And it happened to me when I was living in England. I had been on a Scottish mission with a dear friend, many friends, but I met a dear friend named Heather White. Oh, Heather, she was so British, redhead, looked just Celt, and she spoke so softly and gently. And she goes, "Oh, Susan, you must come and visit us in York." Well, this was the summer. We were having a lovely mission all over Scotland and met wonderful people. I sang with my guitar in many churches and youth events and coffee houses, and I didn't really think I would ever get to her place in York. But long story short, I ended up staying that whole year. I got a job in London, a wonderful job, working at a historical library right across from Buckingham Palace. And so for Easter, she invited me to her home. And I got on the train and went from Victoria Station. That was my station where I came in and out every day, actually, from where I lived out in Croydon. And then I took the train to York. Oh my favorite town other than London. York is so special. The largest cathedral in all of Britain, it's called the York Minster, resides there. And it is so historical. It's where Constantine was crowned king of the Roman Empire. You must remember the Romans were there in 300 when he was crowned. And, you know, they built that wall that's in York, Hadrian's Wall, which separates the Scottish, kept the Scottish out because they couldn't control the Scottish. They were too strong, too bold, and too brave. They were the most incredible military people, and they did not want anyone telling them what to do. So the Hadrian's Wall is still there in York. It's an old, lovely city. And they asked me, I got in on Friday, Good Friday, and here the entire town, the whole town, joined together and went marching all around the Minster. All the different Christian churches were represented: the Episcopal, Presbyterian, the Lutheran, the Catholic, Salvation Army Band, the Baptist. Everyone was there, total unity, had this wonderful service together. Well, that night, there's a small church next to the York Minster called St. Michael of the Belfry. And it was a beautiful old church, and the Reverend David Watson was the minister. Now, he was considered, in those days, the Dennis Bennett of England. The charismatic movement had started in that church, and it was so alive, they didn't have enough room for all the people. They had to have many, many services. It was a real exciting time to be there. Many young people from all over came. Well, they asked me to sing. So for the Friday night Good Friday service, I brought my guitar and I sang a song during the communion. And that was one of my most beautiful memories I have ever had. Singing in an Episcopal church in England, especially an old stone church, has to be the most wonderful worship experience, with not just the acoustics, but the heart, the spirit, the beauty, the love. And it was decorated so, of course, beautiful for beginning of Easter. And then I remember that we went home and we had a Saturday out in the lovely town of York, and then went to church Sunday morning. And I had been through the York Minster. Actually, I sang in the York Minster later with Mervyn Merla Watson and Shekinah. And the York Minster is an experience. You can look it up online if you don't think you can travel to England because of what's going on now. I think travel is difficult. But the York Minster is probably the most amazing church next to Westminster Abbey or St. Paul's Cathedral that I've ever been in. And it's phenomenal. And we went home then and had a dinner, and this is what I want to tell you. Yes, we had hot cross buns, and we had Yorkshire pudding in York, which is like little buns next to the sliced lamb and the peas and the mashed, or the potatoes. I don't think they were mashed. I think they were just cooked. And it was such a wonderful, wonderful Easter. And you know, Easter is the highest, most holy holiday, I believe, in the Christian church calendar. And yet in America, I don't think we celebrate it enough. And in fact, my son called me today. He said, you know, I have a good friend from England and he lives in Phoenix, and a good friend from Canada. And they're shocked at how the Americans don't really celebrate Easter, because in their countries, there's automatically Good Friday off and Easter Monday off. And of course, there is celebration. I know in Canada, when I lived there for a while, the St. Matthew's Passion was always performed by the local town people in the church, not just a professional Benaroya Hall performance, but the actual people of the community performing these beautiful works, which is, you know, the St. Matthew's Passion by Bach is probably the greatest piece of music, one of the greatest ever composed. And so I just wanted to say that is my thought of Easter, and that Jesus, he wants us to celebrate. He wants us to enjoy and be thrilled with the fact that he died for us so we could live. Resurrection is our very life, and it's free. It's a gift, and we can receive it, and we can give it out to others. And this is the thing I was struck with. Jesus, before he went to the cross and gave his life, you know, he gave that wonderful Sermon on the Mount. And it's a very complex, but very simple. It's both. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the persecuted. These words my Lord did speak. And then he said, bind the brokenhearted, set the captives free, and grant liberty. That is where our entire concept of freedom comes from. You know, Western civilization, all the good of it is really based on Christianity. Wherever the Christians went, they built hospitals, schools, and churches. They lifted up and they elevated. And they wanted to bring freedom. That's really what our country was founded on, was the concept, going back to Magna Carta in 1215, when Magna means big, Carta means chart, in England, it was stated, anyone born on English soil is born a free man. Well, where did that concept come from? That comes from this. It comes from the Bible. It went back to the Dooms of Alfred in the 10th century and back to the codes of Moses, the Ten Commandments, that each man in God's eyes is equal. And a simple way of looking at it is, especially at Easter, the ground is level at the cross. It doesn't matter if you are a king, if you are a prince, if you are a pauper, or if you are the thief on the cross. When the thief asked Jesus to forgive him and to save him, Jesus said, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." And the other profound word I've been pondering is, when Jesus was on the cross, he had done nothing wrong, and here he was being crucified. And what did he do? Was he bitter? No. Was he angry? No. He said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That is what I want us to take home today from the tea table. Let us live in that love and forgiveness. Forgiveness is like gold. It's like drinking the best vitamin you could ever drink. It's like giving the best gift you could ever give. We first must receive God's forgiveness for our sins. Then we can forgive ourselves. And after we forgive ourselves, we can forgive others. And let freedom reign. This has been such a special tea party with you. I really send all my love to all of you this Eastertide. I pray each of you will have the best Easter. And please, have a cup of tea. Take time and serve a cup of tea to someone else. This has been very special. God bless you, and happy, blessed Easter. I look forward to seeing you next time. God bless.